Welcome to
Open Your Mouth and Speak. I'm co-host Monica DeJesus, survivor and motivator.
I am Hallelujah DeJesus. We are encouraging others to heal with God through His grace and mercy.
You're tuning in to womeninspirationalradio.org, and today's topic is, what should you do after a child tells, and continuation of child sexual abuse? And the information that we're receiving here today is accredited to stopitnow.org. Again, that website is stopitnow.org. What should I do after a child tells? When a child discloses sexual abuse, here are some important things that the child will need you to do. Stay steady. The child will look to you for cues that will be okay. Unquestionably, sexual abuse can change a child's view of the world. Yet, regardless of how devastated you are, they need to believe that they will be all right, that they are not damaged goods. As is true for other severe traumatic events, with protection, support, and specialized treatment, children can and do recover. Children can and do go on to live full, happy, productive lives. Lots of successful people, including many famous figures, are survivors of sexual abuse. Breaking the silence is the first step. Well, when you think about staying steady, what does that look like? I know from my experience with my daughter going through sexual abuse, it was hard for me to think that her situation and her dealing with things was different than how I dealt with it. I felt like I was strong about it and I was able to get over the emotions and feelings. And I was expecting her to do the same thing, but she did exactly opposite. She was the opposite of what I was, and I had to realize that even though I felt like I could help her, and I did try to help her in silence, it did not help her.
Yes, and to piggyback off of that, yes, you can, go on to live a full, happy, productive life, but that's not the case for everyone. Like you said, everyone handles trauma differently. Everyone handles experiences differently, and in order for a child to even feel safe enough to disclose information, there has to be some sort of emotional security within the guardianship of the child. And if they don't feel emotionally stable enough to even come forth to the parent, then that's like the first step. They're not going to be able to speak their truth or feel safe enough to speak their truth and feel as though that the guardian will still have that love for them. Because sometimes we associate negative reactions, negative emotions with hate, or that we don't love something, and that's not the case all the time.
That's true. And I know that I had to realize that after a while you needed some outside help that I could not provide, but I was okay to know that I needed someone else to step in and intervene to get you the help that you needed. And so that's when we went into counseling, and we also reported the situation. So when we're going through situations like that, we as parents, we have to be the one, as the nurturer of our children, as the protector and the provider for our children, we have to be the one to step up and say, enough is enough. My child needs help. And we have to be able to allow our children to receive that help, unless the cycle is going to continue and it's just going to be a whole mess. How do we as parents open a conversation with our children about emotional stability? How do we become emotionally stable enough in mind when we're going through so many different traumas of our own self? Well, how I was able to manage a lot of that was through prayer. I seek God and I seek His help on how to help my child, because I knew that I was hurting my own self, that I had been through some very traumatic situations before all of this came to light. And I prayed about it, and I seek the Lord on how to deal with helping my child. And I knew that it had to start within me. If I was going to see my child through to get the help that she needed, I knew that I had to receive the help too. So when I signed my child up for mental health counseling, I didn't just send her, I sent myself as well, so that we both could receive the healing that we both needed.
Yes. Healing, growing together, yes, through the power of prayer, through the power of real help as well. Sending the child is not going to help the family. Ultimately, the child is not the only one being traumatized. The family, everyone connected to that child is also traumatized in the situation.
Yes, can be affected. We have believe what they say. Believe what a child says. Thank the child for telling you. Let them know that you love them. If the disclosure is hard to believe, which it can be, I know in my situation it was, keep reminding yourself that false disclosures are rare. And I would tell myself while I was listening to my child, even though it was so hard to listen to her, I knew that my little 7-year-old child could not have known what it was like for a man to mistreat her in that way, to use her in that way. And I knew that she was telling me the truth. If you absolutely feel you need more information, think of the first step. Stay calm. Ask clarifying questions, parents, in a matter-of-fact way. Be very careful to avoid questions that suggest you expect or want a specific answer. For example, did someone touch you right there? You don't want to ask those questions. Try not to show relief or disapproval to the answers your child gives. Try not to show so much emotional feelings towards what the child is saying. When children detect in others pain and upset resulting from their disclosure, they will sometimes try to take back or recant the disclosure. This is common, parents. This is common. And it is not necessarily an indication that the abuse really didn't happen. So be careful with that, because sometimes children are afraid and they don't know what to say to you. Sometimes they feel like, like you may be in trouble behind what they say. They may feel like the perpetrator has already told them that if they disclose the information or tell about the abuse, that they're going to hurt them or even hurt you. So we have to be very careful of how we approach our children and allow them the opportunity to speak out about what happened.
That is also why it's important for the emotional stability within the parent. Because if the child can see a healthy, resemblance to emotional distortion, which is whenever you're distorted emotionally, then they'll be taught on how to handle it is what the parent reflects. So when they go through an experience, if they're older, maybe they'll be able to help somebody. But what you show them and what you do in that moment will be the tell-all, be-all for the rest of their life.
And remember, we're talking about small children that really do not know. They know that it's wrong. They know that they're going through things, but they do not know how to express themselves. And it's up to us as parents to provide that safe place to help them. And if it's a parent or that is the perpetrator, then we're talking to people around the child that see something happening to them and that should be the responsible party to want to help them. We should all want to look out for our children and help them and be there to be a listening ear for them and a supportive backbone for them to be able to depend on us to help them.
Not only small children, there are teenagers, there are preteens, there are even young adults who also may not be able to disclose information.
Right.
This isn't just for young children. This tactic of emotional stability, being able to emotionally be secure within yourself, will be able to help other people be vulnerable in their truth. Come forth about it. But you have to have an open mind and open heart, and you do have to pray. Prayer does help you get through hearing the traumatic situation. Sometimes you won't believe the kid. If the kid, even like what we were just read, if they recant the story, doesn't mean that it isn't true. It may mean that it's emotionally overwhelming for the child and they don't want to deal with it anymore, and maybe life was more simple when they didn't have to deal with it. But that's not the narrative that we want to show people is acceptable. No, that is not acceptable. So we have to be strong within ourselves to help them.
And going into reestablish safety. Restoring safety is crucial and should be considered a priority. Sexual abuse takes away a child's sense of control over their surroundings and can lessen the faith that adults will protect them, just like Holly was talking about. Immediately establish a plan with other adults so that unsupervised contact with the person who has abused that child is eliminated. Help the child understand that the person who abused them did something wrong. Let that child know that that person that touched them the wrong way, that was wrong. And that this person who did that needs help to stop hurting others. Pay close attention to the child's cues about what they may need to feel safe or how they may need to feel safe.
Yes, that is also very true. Ask the child, what do you think should happen? What would you like to see happen as well?
And what the child needs may be different from what you may expect. And what the child may say, they may not actually keep them safe. That may not actually keep them safe for what they may ask you about, such as spending time alone with that person that abused them. We don't want that abuse to continue, and we don't want that child to continue to be around that abusive person neither.
But that is also something to look out for. Children can be in love with their abuser, and love is universal feeling. So it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, you will feel what love brings, even though somebody is hurting you. As a child, sometimes perpetrators do that. They get the trust of the child. They consistently show the child certain types of affection, or they make the child feel seen consistently. That's why for parents, it is very important for you to consistently be healthy with your child. So when they go out of your presence, they know what unhealthy reactions and healthy actions are.
And also for parents that are abusing their children, we do have to be careful with that because, yes, children still do love them. It's not like that's their enemy. They don't want to make that person their enemy. And we all know that children are very humble and meek, and that they love, they may get into situations, but they still love after that. So we have to be able to protect them from that.
And we all know personal experiences with people who even physical abuse. Abuse is abuse, but you may still love your abuser. Domestic violence survivors understand that. It doesn't matter how much someone is hurting you, you still have potential to have that love pheromone there.
So with that said, it's always best to take the extra step to give the child a greater sense of safety. Even if the request the child makes seems irrational, just like they may ask to put on 2 pairs of pants instead of 1, building up their sense of confidence and security is very crucial. You can also help the child feel safe by demonstrating your willingness to protect their privacy. The sexually abusive behavior may feel extremely personal to the child, just like you said, Holly. Be careful not to talk about the abuse with anyone who does not need to know. Depending on the age of the child, overhearing others speaking about the abuse can cause embarrassment and increased sense of feeling exposed.
And I would definitely like to expound on that because as children, I'm not really sure about how every teenager or young adult is different, but for children, like they said, at a certain age, you can feel embarrassed. You can feel as though you've been exposed about something that you have no control over. But as parents, you have to give your child the free range to feel those emotions if felt. Mom, you can give the example about telling our grandparents.
Right. When I finally contacted mental health and I contacted the authorities, the police, about the abuse and did the reporting, I told my mom and dad what happened because I didn't want them to find out from someone else, not knowing that because Holly was there at the time when we spoke about it, that it made her feel embarrassed about me telling them.
Yes. And as a child, I was like, wow, why did they have to know? Because it's so new. It's fresh. Like, you're just going through it. And the child is also trying to process just like you're trying to process. But as the adult, the same patience and security you give yourself, you also have to save that for the child as well. But you have to give them extra patience, extra security, extra reassurance, so that they understand that what they went through is not okay, but they have someone who truly loves and cares for them every step of the way.
And I just want to say again that the information that we're talking about is credited to stopitnow.org. And then we want to go on to an extension of what you just said, Holly, freedom of self-blame. A child disclosing sexual abuse needs to be reassured that they are not to blame in any way. And I'm going to say that again. They need to be reassured, parents, that they are not to blame in any way. They are not to blame for causing it. They are not to blame for not stopping it. They are not to blame for not telling about it. Though it may seem unimaginable to the outsider, shame and self-blame are some of the most common responses to sexual abuse and some of the most difficult to overcome. Some adults may find themselves privately blaming a child for not telling sooner. And I think that's a natural reaction too, even though we should not do it as parents. Sometimes, as an adaptive measure, children take responsibility for the abuse rather than acknowledge how out of control they feel. It is natural for children to feel they are the cause of the behaviors and feelings of those around them. So they take it on themselves and they think that they can control it, and they try to control it. Honestly, their emotions and their feelings.
Honestly, I'd like to say something else about that. Even though, yes, like you said, it is a natural reaction to blame the child, because a statistic that I found is a lot of the times one perpetrator may have 5 to 10, but then the next perpetrator may have 10 to 20 victims at a time. And I found that information, I believe it was RAIN.org or YWCA.org. But whichever the organization was, they did expound on that a lot of the times the perpetrator does not only have one victim, they have multiple victims. And if you are aware of that, please do not blame the child, because they are a child. You've been here longer than them. So, of course, you're going to understand how Earth and people here work, because they just got here. So you have to extend grace to them, because they have to learn. And in order for them to learn, they have to feel safe enough to learn, vulnerable enough to say their truth, so that the whole situation is expounded on and not bits and pieces of what you can digest.
And remember, even if a child gives permission or acts willingly, this never implies consent. A child's permission or even request to play a sexual touching game never excuses the adult or teenager from taking full responsibility for the interaction. It is always the adult's responsibility to set the limit or say no. The child is never accountable. Never accountable. Stressing to the child that the person who abused them did something wrong and that this person needs help from other grown-ups to get better is very important, parents. This can help free the child from feelings of self-blame. We never want the child to feel like they are the reason why an adult or a mature, especially teenagers, mature child or teenagers, that they are being taken advantage of and is their fault. They should never feel like it's their fault.
Yes, and always let them know, which is why reassurance is important. A lot of children desire reassurance from people they care about, and that's another reason why it is so easy for other people to abuse them, is because if a child is not getting reassured by the parent and another person, a perpetrator, is reassuring them in whatever type of way, they're going to feel safer with that person, because that person is consistently reassuring them that this is going to be okay, or you're this, you're that. But I feel that is for the parent to do, so the child can have that bond with the parent in a healthy way.
Yes, just like being very careful. Like I remember when Holly had already exposed to me what happened, and I remember being careful even with the way that I woke her up. I didn't want to touch her inappropriately. I wanted to make sure that whatever steps that I had taken, that my child knew that I was there to support her, that I was there to love her, and that it was not her fault. So we have to be very careful and look for those things too, the way our children respond to certain things, so that we won't traumatize them from the things that they have been through, so that we can help them to heal. Even though we may not be the person to take them into mental health counseling or the person to be able to speak with them and get through to them, we still have to be there, supportive to that counseling session, or supportive to that pastor or that minister or whoever God placed into your lives to help through the trauma.
And I would like to add that I'm glad that you said that, over traumatizing, because that is a thing. The situation is already traumatizing. But once you're going through the process of now, what do we do with the person? Because the person could be a grandfather. The person could be a grandmother. It could be either gender. It could be someone close. It could be someone not close. But that process is also borderline traumatizing for the victim and the people of the victims you're technically a victim as well because you're also experiencing it. It is a whole nother avenue for everyone involved. So therefore, there has to be some level of peace or patience within that so that you don't traumatize yourself or traumatize the other person, because when people get older, what you show them is what they're going to remember.
Right.
So if you have a child who is 7, now they're 30, and if it happens to their child, God forbid, but if it happens to their child, you don't want their reaction to that child to be how you reacted to them if it wasn't healthy, if it wasn't safe, because then now you're just repeating cycles.
The cycle. We want to break the cycle.
Exactly. We want the cycles to break.
And that goes right into express your rage to the appropriate people. Anger or outrage is normal, parents, an appropriate response when we are deceived or when someone violates our sense of safety or when someone harms our own children. Be aware that a child may believe that they are the cause of the rage they see around them. Choose friends and professionals who can support you in expressing your reactions. Find some place away from the child to express your anger and grief. And I can truly say that that is what I did. I called on, at the time, my first lady. Her and I had a very great talking relationship, and I knew that I could trust her. I knew that whatever I said to her, it wasn't going to go to anyone else. And when I was away, I had to go walking and find my space. I called on her. She was a godly woman. She is a godly woman, and she was there in support of what I had to say, because I had to find some type of outlet to express what I was feeling. It felt like a death. It felt like a death of a child, just to know that someone violated my child and violated her in such an awful way. No matter what way it was awful. But just the fact of knowing that so many things were already going on in my life and that was an added trauma to it, to know that my child had been abused. Some adults may mistakenly assume that a child will feel better if they hear that the person who abused them will be severely punished or harmed. Even if the child is also angry, remember, parents, that threats of violence or punishment may frighten a child even more, especially if the child still has positive feelings towards the person who abused them.
And I can honestly say that that is very true, that even though the child has been abused, even though you have told them that what the person did wasn't great, it's the same thing as a fresh breakup. Doesn't mean that you're going to really understand right away. It doesn't mean that the feelings for that person that you may have had positively are going to just automatically fly away. No, sometimes it's still there. Sometimes you may still have some type of affection, because as a child, who you bring around your kids in their beginning years is very important, because they bond to those people. You always remember the person who was nice to you. You always remember the person who did this, is that when you're a child, like you always remember. So that I definitely would say is very true.
Yes, and so in our closing, we need to tell you what it looks like to get help. Many people attempted to handle a disclosure of sexual abuse privately on their own, especially when the abuse happens among family or friends, and we know that is so true in our communities. But that can be a mistake, and it is a mistake, and can further isolate those who need support, meaning the parent and the child. The child, of course, but the parent too. Recognize that all family members are affected when a child has been abused, and each one may need special help. Typically, these kinds of family conflicts do not get better without help from an outside specialist who can assist in the healing process. And please remember to involve God in it and pray. Pray for your family. It works. It is in the whole family's best interest for an adult within the family to be the one to reach out for help first. Waiting for a community member to recognize the problem from the outside and then file reports on suspicions of abuse can result in more damage to the family. Sexual abuse of children is against the law in all 50 states. By taking action, you may reduce the risk of others in your family or community from being sexually abused. Many people who sexually abuse children are believed to be stopped. They are believed to be stopped and are good candidates for specialized treatment to help manage abuse impulses. Secrets support everybody's shame. By getting effective outside help, Everyone involved has an opportunity to begin the journey towards recovery.
There's a website for multi-systemic therapy for youth with problem sexual behaviors. It's mstpsb.com. You can go on that website and
say it again.
It's mstpsb.com. And they have where you can sign up to receive help if you know anyone who is an abuser who would like to have help as well.
And remember, we want to change the narrative from hurt people to hurt people heal and help hurt people. I want to leave with you the scripture from Psalms 34:17 of the NIV version. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. We want to change the narrative from hurt people to hurt people heal and help hurt people. We want to thank you for tuning in to Open Your Mouth and Speak. Please tune in every Wednesday from 1 o'clock p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Check out our hashtags, and we thank you for tuning in. God bless you.